Has this happened to you? You're in a pitch meeting or a sales call. You finally have the attention of the person who can invest or buy. You've decided to tell a story. And a few minutes, a few seconds in, you're convinced you've made a bad choice. They seem uninterested, impatient, visibly annoyed. If you've been in this situation, I feel for you. It's unpleasant at best. Here are 3 tips to keep it from happening again. 1. Take a closer look at the story you're telling with a very critical eye. Is it too meandering? Does it take too long before it's clear what the story has to do with the thing you're trying to sell? It's one thing if you're telling a story to your employees or in a breakout session at an industry event. The power dynamic is different in those environments, and you can be a little looser with the flow of the story. However, when you're on borrowed time, waste not a minute on the indulgent details. The story needs to be tight, the point obvious. 2, consider your delivery. I don't talk much about this, but I can't leave it unsaid in these situations. There should be an urgency and intensity in the way you tell a story in a sales environment, an attitude that shows you understand their time is valuable and that this story is worth that time, that you wouldn't tell it unless you absolutely needed to. This is not the environment for a fireside chat vibe. Get in, get out. Next, consider changing the first story you tell them. The story that got a little awkward was likely a story about you, your discovery of a solution, your passion for the opportunity you're offering to them, or something similar. And that is not a wrong story to tell by any means. But if you know the person you're talking to has an ego, and many of us do, instead of launching into a story about you, launch into a story about them. And no, I'm not talking about that stupid way other story experts tell you, like tell a story that makes them the hero or the customer the hero. No, that's stupid. And that's not what I'm talking about. Tell them the story of why or how or what drove you to want to sit down with them. For example, let's say you met a few weeks back at a networking event. Tell that story briefly about the night and how throughout the conversation you were struck by their passion for insert name of the relevant passion. Include what you were thinking during the conversation, what you have thought about in the time since that, and ultimately what led you to reaching out for this meeting. This works as a starting point for 2 reasons. We love hearing stories about ourselves. No matter who you are or how big or small your ego is, we love hearing someone else tell a positive story about us from their perspective. And 2, in telling this story, it will likely inspire the person you're meeting with to share their version of the story. Once that happens, once you have the person who has agreed to meet with you telling a story, now it's a more even playing field. It's not a meeting or a pitch. The exchange of story indicates a conversation. Yes, there are people who don't believe they need the story, but they're wrong. On a biological level, human programming is such that we all want and prefer stories, that a story will impact our decisions and be more memorable. However, it's true. In order to get the story out that you know needs to be told, it might take a little bit more finesse. Those tips will help.